Hello, everyone. The last couple of days, I've had some things rolling around in my head that wanted to get out, so I thought I would pop in here for a few minutes and ramble on a bit. I've been thinking a lot about why it's taking science so long to accept what they might think of as the woo-woo factor of the quantum world. For example, the double slit experiment has been repeated countless times since the first version in 1801, showing that light was a wave, not a particle. Then the innumerable variations in the 1920s illustrating that photons can behave either as particles or waves, but cannot be observed as both at the same time, and are waves of probability, as they don't follow a predictable direction and will remain in a state of superposition until a measurement is taken. And we also know that a particle can't have both a definite position and velocity at the same time. So these probabilities don't exist until someone chooses what to measure, such as spin in one direction or another, as in the observer effect. Okay, so I'm cool with all of that, but what I don't get is why it's taking so long to add consciousness into the mix. The problem of showing how science can go from the quantum state to consciousness seems to be a huge gap. Well, anyway, I was considering some of those things that I had mentioned in the previous presentation and how, or maybe why, some of this research is done the way it's done, and how amazing it actually is that with all the strict regulations these researchers have to follow, that they even attempt these what might be considered peripheral studies. I mean, you got to hand it to these universities and organizations taking on such topics. To me, some of the most fascinating research to date is on the topic of reincarnation and past life studies, being done at the University of Virginia, which involves investigating the psychology and biology of children who spontaneously begin relating a past life that they remember in such precise detail that those investigating could easily track down evidence of this former life. The children often remember their former name and address and describe their home, their family members, as well as how they died in that life. And interestingly, sometimes a child's current body will even present birth defects as a result of that former tragedy. Like the child who told of being killed in his past life by a shotgun blast to the left side of his face, and was born with a missing left ear and a deformed left side of his face. Or the child born with a huge red scar on his back and tells his parents that he was shot in the back in his previous life, and this is how he died. My own son was born with a large raised red area on his arm, and at age 3, he told us that it came from when he died in the war. From the details he was able to give at such a young age, it was our best guess that he was talking about the Vietnam War, which would mean that he came back through the reincarnation process very quickly. And this is also what University of Virginia's Dr. Tucker most often found with his kids who were remembering past lives, that they were reborn only a few years from their death, making it easy to find those still living relatives and family members who the child was missing and feeling lonely for. My son remembered his mother in his past life and many other details, but not enough that I could track down his former self. Although, admittedly, it's much easier now with the internet. I also find very interesting the research taking place at Harvard Medical School on sleep paralysis, where patients describe a very frightening experience where they are either asleep or falling asleep and are suddenly paralyzed. Many commenting that they instantly felt an evil presence in the room, but they couldn't move their head to look around. It usually then progresses onto a sense of heaviness or pressure on their chest, like there's someone laying on top of them, and they're terrified. And when they try to scream or move, they're not able to do either. There can also be a feeling of leaving their body and flying. Some will tell about this paralysis happening many times throughout their lives, and others only maybe once or twice. The details Harvard Med School is collecting comes not only from interviewing patients, but gathering information from various sleep studies using electrodes to monitor brain waves, eye and muscle movements, and heart rate. They also monitor respiratory, breathing and oxygen levels. So, from what I can find, none of this has really answered the questions of how and why sleep paralysis occurs. And from my perspective, really needs to delve deeper into not so much the physical why, but what is happening to the person's conscious perception during this time. Does the consciousness leave the body, as in an out-of-body state? And how and why is this happening in the first place? And does the sensation of an evil being stem from being frightened? Or does the condition itself cause so much fear that the mind conjures up an evil being simply from being terrified? As with any of this research, the way I see it, we won't get anywhere if the research is confined only to the physical brain and body, as if this is all that exists. Science must be willing to go forward into the understanding that the brain does not produce consciousness, but receives data, bringing in information from the non-local field of consciousness and transmitting it back from the brain into experience as a holographic structure. For example, Nassim Harameyn's holographic model reveals that consciousness is not localized in the brain, but that the entire body and brain are receivers / transmitters connected to a cosmic intelligence or information network. So consciousness would not be limited or localized, and not only inside the brain, but outside, and would filter through everything, finally organizing into structure as the very nature of reality. One of my favorite mind walks is through the scientific realm of the many worlds theory, in which, with every decision made, an entirely new universe springs into existence, where each universe splits off into many new universes every time a quantum measurement is made. And therefore, all possibilities are realized. Well, we now have the astounding work done by Griffith University academics who are blowing minds with their many interacting worlds theory, which proposes that parallel universes not only really exist, but that they interact, that nearby worlds influence one another. The reality of these other universes has been previously questioned because they're not seen to influence our universe at all. But those working with this theory explain that the world we perceive is only one of a boundless number of worlds, and all quantum influence results from a universal force that repels, preventing other worlds from having the exact physical organization or design. Yet, as an observer, we are unaware of which world we occupy. Therefore, this interaction would not be realized. Such an interplay and the mutual repulsion between universes could help to explain even the most bizarre features of quantum mechanics, and could even be useful in drafting experiments to test some quantum phenomena. How exciting is this? And what about the subject of UFOs and extraterrestrials? This subject has been difficult to study in depth because it's so guarded and debunked by government and military agencies. Yet, does this make it less feasible or less real? How many millions of cases have to come forward before they hit the mainstream news feed? How many sane and reliable police personnel, army officers, scientists, doctors, and others who we usually rely on for rational information are totally rebuffed when they attempt to report a sighting or contact from an extraterrestrial source? At the most benign, they are ridiculed. At the most outrageous, their lives are threatened. Individuals who were at the top of their careers, respected and loved, fall into disgrace at the admission of a communication that was not even sought out by them, and they're simply trying to do the right thing by reporting the interaction or incident. An intelligent, rational, open mind, it seems, is not always enough to escape being teased, or worse, scorned for expressing a viewpoint or a perspective or sharing an experience outside of the acceptable norm. You know, so much of the current research into the nature of reality seems to fall into the category of metaphysics. And as I mentioned, the woo-woo factor. However, if we ever hope to study and understand reality through matter and energy at the most fundamental level, it seems essential to me that we might want to expand our knowledge of the quantum world, where a particle does not exist in one state or the other, but in several states at once. And we, as the conscious participant, are the arbitrator of that particle's destiny. This is the world of quantum physics, which is the very foundation of our world. It will never make sense without the addition of consciousness. And one reason for this is that, unlike the deterministic nature of classical physics, on a quantum level, these processes are entirely random. This randomness means that the result of the calculations and quantum experiments done exist only as probabilities, providing space for chance. One of my favorite E.T. quotes is, "If you simply cannot believe in ghosts and aliens, you will never understand quantum physics." Oh, so these two particles that we spoke of, no matter how far they are separated, continue to be entangled, acting as a single object. This is the concept known as non-locality. Non-locality describes how entangled particles that interact with each other become permanently connected and dependent on each other's state and property, having the ability to instantaneously know the other, even when separated by huge distances, where one will have a clockwise spin and the other a counterclockwise spin. Consciousness is non-local, so quantum entanglement effects are the source of consciousness. And we can add here that the concept of superposition also applies, where particles exist in a wave function of all possible states until a measurement is taken, as in the Schrodinger's cat thought experiment, where the cat is considered both alive and dead until you open the box. And so let's add in here the near-death experience, where a person may report that his awareness has floated up to the ceiling, only to look down and observe his own body laying in the hospital bed. He's watching the nurses and doctors busily attending to his body as he watches from above. Afterward, able to describe in detail all that he saw, including the resuscitation techniques or surgery. The person may speak of having had a holographic life review where they were taken through incidents within their life exactly as if they were reliving them, every act and thought that they originally had, yet not only as themselves, but as the others in the event. This is interconnectedness, where time and space have ceased to exist, and the patient surveys his whole life in one glance. And this amazing non-local event appears to take place in one fraction of a second, simultaneously, all at the same moment. So to tie this all together are the three scientists who won the Nobel Prize last year with their research showing that the universe is not real. To a classical physicist, something is real if its properties are determined prior to being measured. You know, the sky can be blue even when no one is looking at it. But the quantum world has just proven differently, that our universe is not locally real, that until a particle is observed, it is entirely random. Before quantum mechanics, scientists believed the world was deterministic. That events are completely determined by past existing conditions or causes. However, quantum physics has just proven that the universe cannot be locally real because particles in a quantum state lack a definite spin up or spin down characteristic before a measurement is taken, which would collapse the wave function. Therefore, the simple act of observing changes the particle from existing in a state of superposition, all possible states, to a state of either spin up or spin down, which only after observation creates the actual physical reality we all know, therefore contradicting the rules of local realism, proving that the universe is only real when you're looking at it. It is the conscious witness, you, that brings the world into existence. Thank you for listening.